Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for the first event in the University of Regina's 2022 Alumni Effect Virtual Speakers Series. I'm Dr. Florence Ruhanga, Interim Associate Dean in the Faculty of Nursing, and also I'm a professor, Associate Professor. Over the next hour, you will hear from alumni Joan Pratchler, a lifelong learner of the University of Regina. So Joan received her Bachelor of Education and Bachelor of Arts in French and Music from the University of Saskatchewan and St. Thomas College in Saskatoon. Over her career in education, she completed her postgraduate diploma and master's in education from the University of Regina. Her master's thesis was a qualitative work, one of the first in the Faculty of Education at the time. She probably won't tell you this, but her thesis was nominated for the Governor General's Gold Medal for outstanding research in master's and PhD program. Quite an accomplishment, Joan. After a full career in education, Joan retired, but then she decided to come back. Then in 2019, Joan completed a 4-year degree in the Saskatchewan Collaborative Bachelor of Science in Nursing program at the University of Regina, just before the pandemic started. But while in the nursing program, Joan was accepted into the UOVA and Saskatchewan Study Abroad program, where she studied nursing both in Malawi, Africa, and in Habatpur in northern India, near Punjab and Tibet, an ambassador and a global student of life in a world of learning. And I think before I go to that, I should apologize because I'm supposed to have done the land acknowledgement. So bear with me, I will just go back to the land acknowledgement. And then so before I introduce myself, I was supposed to start acknowledging that we are gathered virtually on Treaty 4 and 6 territories, the ancestral land of Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, and Nakota peoples, and the homeland of the Métis on whose territory the University of Regina resides. The university's alumni department is pleased to offer the alumni seminar speaker series virtually. This is the first time hosting a lecture in this seminar, and I hope that your time with us today motivates you to return for the future session. Now, I should also point out that this series are being recorded and will be posted on the alumni website so that you can watch the presentation again and share with them, with your friends. You also have a link on the alumni website in the chat if you like to access the videos. And then I was now supposed to introduce Joan, which I've already done. So today, Joan will discuss her experiences as a student and as alumni of the University of Regina and share with us the challenges and steps that she took to achieve her goals. Following her discussions, we will have about 15 minutes for a question and answer sessions. So as you listen to Joan's discussion, please put down your questions in the chat feature, which you will find at the bottom of the screen. I will share them with Joan afterwards, after the discussion ends, and we'll have our best to make sure that as many questions as possible will be taken. Yeah, so I'll now turn out to Joan, kind of introduce herself.
Well, thank you, Florence. Bonjour tout le monde. Wie geht es Ihnen, Tansi? Welcome and thank you for coming to this session. I'm quite humbled and surprised that I'm on this one. I hope you have a lovely, lovely time with us. Hope we're not too long. Just thank you for attending. I know everybody's very busy at this time of the year. It's so sunny, be doing so many different things. So thank you very much. So yes, my name is Joan Pratchler, and I'm a registered nurse and I'm a registered teacher. Just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I grew up on a farm outside of Munster, which is very close to St. Peter's Abbey. And that's where I learned a lot of, music and the arts and things there. I went to the U of S and got my education degree and my arts degree in both French and in music. And then I became a teacher and I came to Regina and I was teaching in Regina. Everything from kindergarten to grade 8. I was also a sessional lecturer at the university, helped with interns, teaching some grad studies courses. And I was a teacher for about 18, a fair amount. But once you're a teacher, you're always a teacher. And then I became an administrator. But in order to do that, I needed to make sure that I had the right tools. And I got my postgraduate diploma in education administration and then my master's in education. And throughout all of that, I've always wanted to give back to the community and do what was right. I served on many boards. I was served on St. Thomas More, their governance board, for many years as a director, on the rugby board and opera, and here in Regina, the Santa Maria Senior Citizens Home. I worked there as a governor and actually the chair for a while. And then I worked also on a board, Emmanuel Healthcare, and that's the governance body for all the Catholic health care facilities in our province. And while I was on there, well, we'll hear a little bit more later, but then after I retired, I don't know what that's called. I don't even know what that is. I reloaded after 30 some years and I went into nursing. They took me and here I am. So that's where it is today. So that's my introduction, Florence. You probably have some questions or things that you want to go through. Keep me on track.
Thank you, Joan. We are so excited to have you join us. One of the main questions that current students and recent graduates wants to know is, how did the University of Regina help you reach your goals?
Well, I mean, going into the program, whether it was the education program for postgrad work or the baccalaureate in nursing, universities have the latest research. They've got some excellent clinicians in education and also in nursing. And what I really like about the University of Regina, as most universities have, is they have a broad range of instructors. So you have instructors that have been around for a really long time, and that wisdom is invaluable. And you also have the latest research from some of the new practicing clinicians as well. And wow, what an opportunity to learn so many different things. The other thing that is very, very attractive to me is their amazing library system. And I see some librarians on here. And one of the life skills about going into, post-secondary learning is to know the librarians by their first name and be able to access their knowledge of sourcing information. And I just can't say enough about that. That is really the evergreening font of knowledge in the library system. And that's one thing, if I could ask for the Alumni Association, is to advocate for alumni that they would continue to have access to the library. So many times I want to go back, I want to go just to that specific journal there. I'm not sure how to access that. So if anybody's on the Alumni Association, let's make that happen. As one of the perks to be an alumni, you get a perk into, a lot of the latest research if you can access the library and fully access it. So those were the key things that U of R did. It helped me learn more about the world and the latest things and the new things. And if there's something we haven't learned, we've learned from the last 2 years, is things change. So be on the leading edge if you can.
Thank you, John, for that response. So the next question we want to know is, what inspired you to follow the career path and what steps did you take to make it possible?
Well, we're put on this world and we're given all kinds of gifts and talents. And we need to look at those. I mean, and look at yours. Look at all the people that are on this workshop here today. Have you looked at all your amazing gifts and talents? Really looked. Like maybe we haven't looked lately. You have so many. We are given so many. And then we look at the world around us. And our job, or I feel my calling, was to look, where is there suffering in the world? Where do people feel that they're marginalized? Where is the world not so good? And it could be right in your own family, your backyard, your province, your country, around the world. And the key is we can use our creative genius to take what our gifts and talents are, look at where the world needs you, and match that up. You know, there's an Indigenous saying that says, you know, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. I want to be that student, and I want to be that teacher. Leadership is all part of that. Leadership role modeling is one of the most important things. I had to have role models, and I had lots of them. And as a principal, I also knew that if you really want to lead, you have to lead from within. You lead from shoulder to shoulder. So if there was a new reading program, I needed to teach it side by side, shoulder to shoulder with that grade 1 teacher. So I really understood her world. And that way you gain credibility with the people you work with, the people you serve. And when you know people and you love people, you have to know their stories, you have to know their challenges, you have to know their celebrations so that you can better advocate for them and for the people that you serve. And so what inspired me, I was on healthcare boards, and I was sitting around the board table making $1 million decisions. And I asked myself, well, do you know what's happening on the front lines? Do you really know the people that are working on the front lines? Do you know what they need? Do you know what they want to celebrate? And when that answer was not yes, I said, well, how about you find out about that? And so what's more frontline than nurses? So I applied into nursing, and like I say, they took me. So if you can walk beside someone in the business that you're in, and you can celebrate their joys and their challenges, and you can just live and exist with them and in their world, then you can be a leader, and they can lead you and you can lead them. And that was really important. That inspired me. And I know a lot more about nursing and the healthcare system going into nursing and going through those years.
Thank you, Joan, for sharing that. That seems very exciting, especially for the people who actually were with you. I can see a lot of faculty members, I'm sure, who have taught you, and they should be very proud of you. Thank you. So now, lastly, who were your mentors and what examples did they set for you as you navigated your way past those challenges and forwards in your career?
Well, maybe I should talk a little bit more about some of the challenges. I can tell you when I went to get my master's degree, now that's quite a few years ago. Back then, okay, here we go with the back then stories. But back then, there weren't very many women. In fact, I was pretty much the only woman in the grad studies classes in the Faculty of Education back then. And back then, yeah. So the challenges were the system in education, as many were back then, and 30, 40 years ago. The system was not necessarily a lot of women, let's just put it that way. Research then did not reflect women's ways of knowing. In fact, I did a report at that time. I'm sure it needs to be updated, but over 87% of the teachers in the province of Saskatchewan back in 1985 to about 89, 87% were women. So one would think that you'd have 87% of women in, the decision-making roles. No, not quite. So what are you going to do about that? So nursing, the only challenge was the one in my own mind. I was thinking, oh, what if I'm too old? And then I thought, well, who's getting younger? So that, and the whole idea of going back to school after a full career, it's, people would, retirement isn't something that happens to you in life. Life is what you make happen. And retirement, I really haven't even figured out what that is. I call it reloading. You know, if we look at life as a window as opposed to a mirror. You know, when you look at a mirror, you see everything, and some days it looks really good. Some days there's a lot of things maybe not so good. But if you look at a window and look through the window, you can see all the opportunity out there, and you can see where your place is in that window. So kind of having that mindset helped me a lot to, address the challenges. Some of my mentors, well, when I was growing up on the farm, I guess I could say my family for sure. And I looked around. My mom was one of the few nurses that was a farm wife and a nurse. And I remember people said, well, I wonder how her kids are going to turn out. You know, she's not at home all the time. I don't know how they turned out, but here I am. And so I looked at the strong women, and who were the women running the hospital? Well, it was a woman. Who were the people running the education back there? Was a woman. Now, granted, they all happened to be nuns. But to us, they were pretty powerful, and running a hospital is kind of a big deal, and running an education system is kind of a big deal. And I thought, well, I guess that's just what women do. All right, then, off we go. Let's go and learn. There was a lady in the area, and she really paved the way for a lot of equity, I think, and gender equity in this province, and actually nationally as well. At that time, nurses, not necessarily registered nurses, but CNAs, they call them, it'd be equivalent to like maybe LPNs now. LPNs and orderlies were the non-degree people working in hospitals typically. And of course, they were mostly all women, and the orderlies were all men. And they were doing pretty much the same kind of work. And this lady said, like, how does that, we're doing the same work. Is that interesting? And I remember that one of the phrases she had said was, do not my children get as hungry as his? And that's sort of what precipitated a whole bunch of things through Sask labor relations, labor, and went to provincial, and it made that court case actually went to the Supreme Court of Canada. And at that time, and going forward from then, that's why we have a regulatory body in professions, nursing in particular, and a union, that those things are now divided. And that was that. This same lady actually said, the healthcare costs in our province keep, going up, as we all know. And maybe if we had something like nurse practitioners, sort of a midway between a registered nurse and a physician, we could address some things. And she, with another small group of people, lobbied the provincial government way back then, and voila, we have nurse practitioners. This is the same lady in that area who noticed there wasn't enough housing for seniors. And at the age of, I think, 80, was able to lobby people in the area and converted an old convent into assisted living for seniors. That lady was my mom. So I don't know if it's so much me that did all this, or perhaps watching how she had to navigate through that. But when you come from that kind of a place, you have to honor that. So those were some of my mentors. Mentors at work, I've had so many positive mentors in education, so many wise women and wise men that I could observe and learn from. And you always have the ones that really help you out, and then you have the other ones. And those other ones, you can learn from them too. And, I really respect those people because they helped me, move forward and, come up with ways to navigate around things to make things happen. So those, you can either be bitter or you could be better. And I only have so much energy in my life. How long are you going to be angry that the world is not giving women a fair shake, or this isn't right, or that isn't right? I'd rather use my energy of bursting out and trying doing something that can make things better. So you can't really let other people define you. Can't let your age define you. I mean, really, the best things in life. How do you define love? How do you define joy? So why not just live with that and let the definitions to a dictionary, and just look at yourself. What defines you, and what can you be in the world? So I know that in nursing, I never, ever, ever once thought that I walked alone. There were people everywhere. There are some amazing instructors, amazing clinical instructors that we had in our acute care and long-term care facilities and in public health that walked beside all of us, little groups of 6 as we went through university. Amazing family that was there, amazing friends. That's who the mentors are. Yeah. So there's a great richness at the U of R in that nursing program. I was able to experience it through the eyes of a student, but not just a student. I used my, the administrative eyes, my education eyes, my governance eyes, my employer's eyes, because as an employer, we hired a lot of new nurses. So when you see it through those different, facets, you can see better where you're called to be, or where you need to be, or where you might be able to offer it and make things, more rich and full. Does that answer your question, Florence?
Yes, it has. Did you have something else that you needed to add? I just wanted to find out, you had mentioned that you had visited Malawi and India.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so part of the nursing program is you have opportunities, if you get accepted, to be able to nurse or learn nursing in other countries. So I was able to go to Malawi. We worked with other nursing students, and we were able to go into the poorer areas. Malawi is a very poor, rich in spirit, but economically, has its challenges. So we were able to work in sort of the back areas outside of the main center and do some nursing out there. And, we're part of a very small world. And we have a lot of things here that we need to be very grateful for and never take for granted. Same thing in India. We were up north in India. It's a poorer part of India. It's closer to Punjab. It's right by the Himalayas, or Himalayas as they call it. And I understand a couple of my nursing friends might be on this call. It's late at night there from Malawi and also from India. And so we worked there to help in an area of, very rural area. One hospital, the public health nurse had 40,000 clients. We would go out into the bush, literally, and go to help. And I remember asking one of my nursing friends, I said, that poster is in Hindi. What does that say? And she said, Joan, that says that's polio. If your child looks like this, please see the nurse. I think that was the most striking memory I bring back from being overseas, is that we're one plane flight away from a pandemic. Need I say more? So, you can learn about nursing, and you can learn in nursing a whole lot of things about life. But yes, and those were absolutely invaluable. I still have those as nursing friends, and they're doing some amazing work with what they have over there. So I absolutely a highlight of my nursing school, that's for sure.
Thank you so much, Joan. So now we're going to start looking at the questions which are in the chat that you have shared with us.
So first we have one from Cheryl Marsh. So she's asking, can you elaborate on why you decided to go back into a different career as a mature student? What challenges did you have as a mature student? Any advice for someone who is recently retired and looking for a new direction?
Well, go for it. That's the very first thing, go for it. I said to myself before I applied at nursing, well, you can't go, Joan, I think you're too old. And then the little voice in my mind says, well, how do you know that? Do you have evidence for that? So then I phoned the university, I phoned the dean, and she called me back. And I said, well, did you have an age limit? She goes, no, but the registration's due in a few days, so you might want to get on it. Okay, well, that was one, challenge I didn't have. Okay, good. Next one said, well, how do you, there's going to be a whole new computer program. How are you going to learn to work the computer, especially with, all these, other kids that are going to be there? And I went, probably won't be able to do that right away. Maybe that's an excuse that I don't have to go. Well, and I got a letter in the mail. And the first day we're going to go through the computer program so that everyone knows how it works. I go, okay, well, here's just yet another reason is non-reason for you to go. Learning, they take you through step by step. You're shoulder to shoulder with other students that are all trying to learn, and the profs are fantastic. And hang out the library, they'll help you with everything. So those were really the only challenges, and those were just in my mind. There's no age limit to learning. There's no age limit to working in a library. It was really just do it. Just do it. There were no challenges. And it was in my mind that I was the oldest in the room because it wasn't with the gals I was working with. We all had to pull together. And what fun. Youth is just so vibrant, and you get some great leaders that you can mentor and can learn from too. There's lots of things I learned from my classmates.
Thank you, Joan. The next question is from Robin Kopason, who wants to know if you can speak to your contribution and time spent in India for your CNUR 401.
Oh, yes. Okay, so we were in, like I say, Herbert Pure, which is very close to the Himalayas. And while I was there, had a fantastic, amazing product, Kim Thiessen. I think she's on here. And we were doing community nursing. That was, that was a class that we're going to do. Well, somehow somebody found out what I did in my former life, and they had a special intensive needs school there, because in India and in that area of India, if you had a child that was perhaps not, had challenges, pardon me, they would often just leave them in the bush, and they would just, that was pretty much it. And this group, this Christian hospital said, no, we're going to develop a program for them. And they had a beautiful, it was a Swiss benefactor that made a beautiful school, an intensive needs school. I mean, it was more fabulous than anyone I've ever seen. And they said, well, you used to be a teacher. Do you know anything about report cards? And I said, oh yeah, I've done a few of those. And do you know anything about the curriculum for intensive needs? Oh yeah, I do. I could help. Yeah. So I helped them work on their curriculum. I helped them get parents more involved in the child's education. I did some staff in services. We implemented, health care prevention and promotion into, the students coming to the school and their families. I asked them once, do we know if these children can all see? And I knew they couldn't, but do you know if they can see? And they go, well, I don't know. We never checked. I said, well, can they all hear? Oh, don't know. I said, if they could see and hear well, do you think they would learn better? Oh, yes. How do we do that? So I, with Kim and some of the other workers there, we made some inroads into the hospital that was right near there. So we had optometrists come and see the children, and we worked that in because these children were growing so fast. A lot of them had physical disabilities. So we built it into their report card that parents would come and they would get their, teeth checked, their vision, their hearing, just a physical assessment done so they could continue learning. It was just fantastic. I talked to them about ergonomics and how our vestibular system needs to be managed. I, have little kids' legs shouldn't be dangling. They can't learn if their legs are dangling. Things are all over the place. So we designed tables, and I just gave the plans to the workers, and they made them in that special shop that they had. And these children just really started to learn. I talked to the staff about, curriculum and lesson planning, long range planning, assessment, evaluation. And, sometimes I would ask my prof, say, really, is this really nursing? She says, are you improving their life chances? Yeah. So nursing is teaching and teaching is nursing. And it was fantastic. I really enjoyed that experience. So I hope that answers Robin.
Thanks, Joan. That's wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Next question we have from Beverly Balaski. Congratulations, Joan. Now that you're a registered nurse, is your voice better heard at the board level, or is there now unanticipated challenges to having that informed voice?
Oh no, once you have some letters behind your name, It's interesting how your voice is amplified. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So you could, and part of that is because you got some specific knowledge to ask better questions and sort of build, what do we really want? What is our goal in long-term care, which was at that time, what is our goal? And what are we doing to get there? Is it working? I mean, that's the same thing you ask anywhere, like SMART goals, like, where do you want to be? Are you getting there? But you have to have the beef. You have to have the content. You have to have the knowledge. You want to teach a new reading program? Well, you better know how to read words in the language that that program is in. And if you want to improve long-term care, well, then you better know about long-term care interventions and what excellent, superb care looks like. And when you know that, you can navigate, lead, cajole, work, push, invite, to get some of those things happening. But you have to know your stuff. You can't be a leader with title only. You have to have beef and content behind you. Yeah. If you want to be credible to yourself and to the world around you, yeah, you owe it to them and to yourself to be the best and know the most, or at least know where you can access the most.
Thank you, Joan. Does anyone have any more questions at all? Oh, we do have one more. As the clinical lead, this is from Mark Butekoffer, who works in our office at UAC. As the clinical lead for COVID vaccination rollout, what were the major lessons that you learned?
Well, I was one of the many clinical leads. Well, I can only speak for what science tells me, and that's the evidence. So you learn that there's a lot of different viewpoints out there, and you learn that that you need to stick with the science. There's a reason people go to school for 12 years to become immunologists and vaccinologists. You also know that where there's gaps that maybe you need to do them. And sometimes that's in a small p political way to make things happen. And sometimes when people know better, they do better. And sometimes when people aren't scared, they do better as well. And so I saw a lot of scared people. And that's in education and that's in healthcare. And that's where the compassion comes in. When people feel that they're going to be okay, when they feel that reassuring hand or that spirit near to them, they know they're going to be okay. They will trust you. And then you can walk with them. And you need to walk with some people, and some people you need to carry, and some are just begging to be carried. And that's what compassionate professionalism is to know when to navigate that art of knowing when you carry, walk, push, invite to get to a better place.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Next question from Anne-Marie. How did the pandemic change your view and what lessons did it teach you?
Well, the pandemic actually helped me to tap into things I never thought I would be able to do. Because I convocated just in 2019, so it was just months prior to that pandemic started. I had a friend of mine call me and said, "Joan, you're a nurse. So what's this like SARS thing? What is that?" And like, I've got to open up my schools, and like they're saying like we have to, N95. What is that? 95 cents? What is it? Okay, and this is before anybody knew really anything about masks. In healthcare we do, but I mean, there wasn't a whole pile of masks anywhere. And the administrator in me was going, "Oh my goodness, yeah, how are you going to disinfect and clean things in a school? And I don't want to pay for a whole bunch of new computers where the screen has just been sprayed with some disinfectant that ate the plastic on the computer. And now we have to, kids might lick it. Gosh, what's the right chemical? What kind of things do we need to do?" So I ended up learned how to start my own business. So entrepreneur woman in the middle of a pandemic, my goodness, ended up hiring a infection control practitioner from Alberta Health Services. She was an expert in so many things. I hired someone that was an expert in caretaking because it was going to come down to the caretaking in a school, well, anywhere actually, dealing with this new virus. Said, we just met and we said, what's the worst bug we know of? Tuberculosis. Well, let's treat this one as tuberculosis plus, and let's put those things into place. And so we ended up designing manuals, going through how COVID would impact, the HR department, the IT department, their instruction department, their intensive needs programs. And we designed manuals for them. We did training. We did that for British Columbia schools. We did that for northern schools, southern schools, urban, rural. Over 20,000 students we were able to help through the pandemic, 7,000 staff members. And I still am doing consulting work as a nurse education consultant, because there's not very many nurses that are teachers and not very many teachers that are nurses. So we just put that together and made it happen, helped a lot of people be the calm, during the complicated at those times.
So many things I didn't think of during the pandemic, for sure. Next question from Tava Burton. As an alumna from two different university schooling eras, where do you see the future of learning going, especially in light of the COVID virtual era?
Oh, well, thank you for that. I suppose, virtual learning we had no choice, that we had to do that. And I think, virtual learning became a little bit more sophisticated over the last few years. And it also makes us appreciate, on the other side, the good teachers, the ones that can make that connection, so that when we go back to real life in-person learning, we'll appreciate, those fantastic teachers even more. Nothing against virtual. U of R nursing program, we had several classes that were virtual throughout the whole program. Fantastic. You get to meet people from all over the place. You have a few moments where you can get together, for seminars or what have you in person, but, maybe a little bit of everything, and moderation isn't a bad idea.
Perfect, thank you. And our last question from Diane Lee Renko. What direction would you like to take for your future in nursing? I'm sure you never planned on nursing during a pandemic. Where would you like to go from here?
Well, I think that maybe, given what's happened in our province in particular over the last little while, in terms of what do people really need and what are they really getting in terms of healthcare governance, that we see different places and I've, that I think could use some loving, as it were. I've talked to a lot of nurses in the province. I've talked to a lot of teachers, and that lived experience of both of those professions. Yeah, there needs to be some loving, and I think some advocacy by people that are in the field and can articulate the purpose of science, the purpose of compassion, and being proactive, because this isn't going to be our last bad bug that's coming to visit us. I can tell you that now. And an educated population is a healthy population. So I think advocacy in some way to help mitigate some of those gaps, and I think might be where I might see myself in a little while.
I love that. An educated population is a healthy population. That's awesome. I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Luhanga to close it off. Thank you, Joan.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Joan, for sharing your experiences and to hear so many accomplishments that you have actually had in your life. It's amazing to see, I guess, as they said, that age is just a number. So we still have a lot of stuff that we will have to do. Yeah, so I also want to thank everyone for joining today and contributing to the conversation. And thank you, Joan, for, as I've said, that for taking your time to come and share your experiences with us. So a video of today's alumni will be posted soon on the section of the website. A link to our website, to the website, can be found in the chat. I think, Alexis, you are going to post that, I think. And don't forget to check the U of R website for information on the upcoming events in the series and more. So our next Alumni Effect speaker will be on June 21, 2022, and features Jackie Brasso, the former executive director of UR Pride and currently entrepreneur in the consulting. They will be speaking about their journey at the University of Regina and what 2 SLGBTQ plus community service organization sectors looks like across Canada. Until then, take care and enjoy this beautiful spring weather. It was so good to see all of you. Thank you.